YouTube audience. Can't play those intros and stuff over there on YouTube, folks. Hope you guys understand. But if you send a super chat on YouTube, we'll be reading those at the end of the show, along with the Rumble rants, as well as going into badlandsmedia.tv. If you send a boost there, we'll get it there. One of the things that I want to talk about today is I do want to get into, Joe Kent. I want to make sure we talk about
we'll get into Joe Kent. I think that there's a few things. Listen, and I'm gonna preface this. There's a few more important things to talk about than Joe Kent. But Joe Kent, I think, falls into the area of the psychological warfare context that we're talking about here. Now, and just going into this a little bit about Joe Kent, why did Joe Kent do what he did?
That's a great question.
Follow the wives? I don't know. Follow the wives, I think, is a good start to that. But there's I can't say anything bad about Joe Kent. I still think Joe Kent's a good guy. Well, maybe I don't. I don't know. Alpha's going to say something.
I will share my opinion when we get
into
that topic.
But also, I think that there's something serious going on right now, and people are like the majority of the pundits out there, all of the mainstream media, the majority of the big podcasts, they're all missing it. Yep. Everybody is not seeing what is happening, and it's fucking glorious. I'm sitting here going, like, look, pointing to it. Like, dude, 2 predictions that I've said last Sunday have already happened. Well, basically already happened.
Don't say what they are yet. Say what they are yet. Keep a cliffhanger going.
Well, one of them is like in the midst of happening, but it was like confirmed. And I'm like, yeah, damn right.
Damn Skippy. So if you guys want to know what it is, then let's get to these amazing sponsors, partnerships, and affiliates, folks. Patriot Protect. We're in the middle of the worst stretch of data breaches this country has ever seen, and it's hitting right here in the middle of tax season. In just the last 90 days, a government contractor that handles Medicaid and benefits for 46 states got hacked. 25 million Americans had their social security numbers and medical records stolen. The Texas AG called it the largest breach in American history. Panera Bread, 5 million customers exposed. Under Armour, 72 million email addresses dumped online, all on top of a record 3,300 data breaches in 2025 alone. Here's why you need to care now. Criminals are using the stolen data to file tax returns in your name and take your refund. The IRS flagged 2 million returns for identity fraud last year, and if it happens to you, the average wait, get this, folks, takes about 2 years to resolve. And it's not just breaches. Right now, data brokers and people search sites are publishing your name, your home address, your phone number, even your family members' names, all searchable by anyone online. Scammers don't need to hack you. They just look you up. Patriot Protect fixes that. Their search and destroy protocol scans Google and over 200 data broker sites, finds your personal information, and removes it continuously. Most services tell you after your identity gets stolen, Patriot Protect removes the information criminals need to steal it in the first place. Because of what we're seeing right now, Patriot Protect is offering you 15% off any plan. Use promo code Badlands at patriot-protect.com/DEFCON. That's patriot-protect.com/DEFCON. Your data is already out there. Take it back, and that link will be on our screen here shortly. And our next one, folks, Save Pulse. Unexpected health emergencies don't wait. Stay ahead with Save Pulse Medical Emergency Kit, your all-in-one solution for over 30 common illnesses. This kit is packed with broad-spectrum antibiotics, antiparasites like ivermectin, antifungals, anti-nausea relief, pain relievers, and anti-inflammatories. Plus, explore their top offerings, semaglutide, Josh will fix that for me, I'm sure, for weight management, discounted doxycycline, azithromycin, ashwagandha supplements, and more, all at unbeatable prices, free shipping, and orders over $299. Be prepared for anything. Shop Save Pulse today and protect what matters most. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use code BadlandsKit for 20% off. That's badlandsmedia.tv/meds, code BadlandsKick to get that discount again today. And I think it was semaglutide.
Hey, Alpha, next week, I can read.
you're gonna do
can
the
read
medical
these.
ones that have those weird ass
He is
names in them.
struggling tonight. He couldn't even say the word discount.
Help me with this. SEMA, SE. So
Where is it? Where is it?
it's in the here. I'm gonna put it in the private chat.
Is it in Rumble?
It doesn't even. No, it's not in Rumble. It's SEMAGLUTIDE. Semaglutide. I'm guessing. I think I was close.
Yeah, semaglutide.
Yeah, see, I was close.
Yeah.
Stacy Morris says semaglutide equals GLP-1 injections.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff people are missing. I agree with you. You know who's aware of mainstream media and alt media missing on the topic you're going to cover?
Who's that?
That would be Trump's administration.
Woo!
As a matter of fact, they're out there and they're just like,
well, and I think
boomerang.
that comes a lot from the compartmentalization, right? So I guess we can start with Joe Kent. Maybe that's a good place to start, right?
All right.
Now I heard about, I think we actually heard about this a while back, that there was this meeting with Mark Levin and Donald Trump, and the details of that meeting were leaked to Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
Okay. Now, who was that leaker? Well, that leaker was caught. That was Joe Kent. And he was actually brought into the White House, and he was basically said, don't do that again. And then Trump cut him off from classified information. And so when he puts this post out, here's the thing, is he wasn't privy to any of this information pertaining to Iran. So he would not know about the intel pertaining to Iran. And then also the rumor is that DNI Tulsi Gabbard was ready to actually relieve him of his duties next Monday. He was about to be fired, in other words. I'm not saying Joe Kent's a bad guy or anything of that nature, but Tucker has said multiple different times, I have a contact directly in the White House, directly in the Trump administration. And he's had some really okay intelligence pertaining to this stuff. But this goes back to what you and I have always talked about. How do you catch the leakers?
How do you catch the leakers? And this goes into a lot of people have been feeling discombobulated because they're following Tucker and they're like, but he told us this. And then that didn't happen. But then he told us this and that didn't happen. And right out of the gate, you, myself, and others said Tucker's being sabotaged because they're giving his source.
You just said it Sunday night. You just said it Sunday night.
He's being sabotaged because they're pinpointing where the leak is coming from.
Damn right. And we said this is a technique that was utilized during the first Trump administration and is now carrying over to this administration. Basically, for everybody out there who wonders how it works, is that 5 different people will be told 5 different things. And then you watch those 5 different things begin to leak out into the mainstream media or various different influencers. And now you can attach sources to leakers, right? So
for instance, 5 different things doesn't always mean like a different topic. It could be like I tell Josh, hey, Josh, we're attacking on Monday. And then someone tells, the next guy, hey, we're attacking on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday. So as the press comes out and says, hey, expect something on Tuesday, we know that came from Alpha. If they say
that's
Monday,
on CNN, MSNBC is Wednesday. And now you can pinpoint where these people are coming from. Now, Joe Kent, I mean, I still don't have anything wrong with Joe Kent. I don't know why he was doing it. I don't know why he was giving that information out. But, one look at Heather Kaiser Kent, his current wife, and I can begin to see potentially why a lot of this was happening.
Before you go there, let me just interrupt before these disappear. Yeah. Like, holy crap, our audience is taking care of us tonight. A second one from Counterinsurgent gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands Media. KLC 73 gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands Media, and 15 Tony Baugh gifted 1 subscription to Badlands Media. So again,
you guys are on fire tonight. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. So a few different things. This was 2024. Joe Kent came out and said this, and people are posting, even Donald Trump posted his post from a few years back pertaining to his thoughts and feelings. He says, Iran has been after Trump since 2020. after he ordered the target of killing of terrorist Qasem Soleimani. This isn't a new threat. The Secret Service consistently failing to secure Trump is new. We need to figure out exactly why these failures keep happening. That's just one. But who's his wife? Well, she works for the Gray Zone. And if anybody don't know who owns the Gray Zone, that's Max Blumenthal's son, DC insider, highly Democrat, and a Trump hater through and through. And they produce massive amounts of, and I don't even care to say it like this, but anti-Israel rhetoric. And that's, I really don't give a shit if it's anti-Israel or pro-Israel, but they are the Zionists rule the world and control the world and are coming after your souls. That's the type of people they are. And so I don't know if this was ideological, if this was something that his wife kind of, and by the way, this is how I look at things. And I'm not saying that this is true or the case, but when I start to see that his wife is directly with Max Blumenthal, and you start to look at that political dynasty connection, and you start to see connections to the Democrat deep state and various different internal intelligence infrastructures, what I begin to think about is follow the wives. And I begin to think about how wives are used as handlers for various people in political or power positions, and how the wives utilize various different emotional mechanisms and training that they've received to basically manipulate these people into different ideological preferences.
Now, with that, let me jump in here just to make sure everybody's up to speed. I know a lot of people got home from work. They've been working all day, and they're like, what the hell are you guys talking about with Joe Kent? I had the post up on the screen. Let me read it to you guys for those of you that are listening and not watching. So this morning, Joe Kent puts, after much reflection, I've decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran pose no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. It has been an honor serving under POTUS and DNI Gabbard and leading the professionals at NCTC. May God bless America. So that'll bring you guys up to speed, and I'll share some counterpoints, but I want Josh to go ahead and finish this thought.
Well, let's just bring this up here. Pull that down. I'm going to pull this up. And there you go. Donald Trump, just a little while ago on True Social, post this. It's a Joe Kent post from 1/8/2020. Real Donald Trump, we should not sit and wait for the next attack, wipe Iran's ballistic capabilities out, and get our troops out of Iraq. They are only targets now. No U.S. WIA KIA is a tribute to the professionalism of our military and intel professionals, not Iranian restraint. In other words, Joe Kent has been 100% against Israel and that we need to go in and take out Israel since the beginning. So now there's a transition.
Iran.
Right, with Iran, sorry. There's a transition in the psychological nature of Joe Kent more recently. Obviously, today, people are beginning to see this, and that we see that he's most likely going to be on Tucker relatively soon, and there's some other correlations. I'm not going to draw those up until after you and I talk about a few different things, but there's some other correlations of people that he's potentially associating with. And you got to wonder who's really behind some of these people. And I will say that who is the enemy that is being decimated the most right now? And I'll tell you, it's not Iran, it's not Russia, it's not China. But when you start to understand this one enemy that we consider to be the old guard has an old school intelligence apparatus that is integrated around the world. They operate through all various different types of media organizations, political organizations, think tanks, NGOs, NPOs. Their infrastructure is within various different governments, and they can get to anybody at any time. And here's the thing, is they know how to manipulate people. They know how to tie into your emotions and completely constrict your ideological preference to a different viewpoint. And they do that with their handlers. They do that with females because they're the ones that can actually drive the most emotional charging change within a man. So I just want to put that out there because I think that this has something much deeper to it than Joe Kent just had a change of heart on Iran.
Let me ask you this, and that's my little one that got excited, folks. So my apologies if that came through the microphone. Is if we rewind the clock back to 1775, 1776, you know, we get in this fight with a country that's pretty powerful. And we declare independence from that. Are you kind of hinting, Josh, that maybe we never really fully got our independence and we're actually in that fight, that real American Revolution in modern times?
Well, when you look historically back to the American Revolution, there's a lot of interesting things in historical context that people should look at. Number one is, what did we really separate from in the Revolutionary War? We separated from the king and the bank. That's primarily what we separated from. But many people will bring in the East India Company, and they'll bring this into context that the East India Company was running England at that time, and that's actually not true. There's context there, but it's not true. The first flag of the United States when it formed after the American Revolution was actually the flag of the East India Company. Alexander Hamilton was only 19 years old when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Now, why is that interesting? Because Alexander Hamilton is that's like one of our kids going in there and joining the American Revolution and becoming one of the top leaders. It makes no sense. So the question is who did he know? Who was his connections, and why did they need him? Right? Well, he became one of the first secretaries of Treasury in 1792. And that was when the Commerce Act came out. Now, did you know that the Commerce Act was funded by a private organization? $10 million into the Treasury in 1792 came from a private organization. Just so happens, Lord Hamilton of Scotland, who sat on the board of directors of the East India Company, was Alexander Hamilton's uncle. And the East India Company funded the first $10 million for the United States of America. So when you start to look at kind of what infrastructure was behind the American Revolution, it was those that wanted to separate away from the crown, from the monarchy, from the centralization of the banking dynasties and the relationship with the crown. Now, expand out. You get the War of 1812. Britain tries again. You get the assassination attempts on Andrew Jackson. Britain tries again. You get Abraham Lincoln. Britain succeeds. I mean, you go back and forth with this, and you always have some type of European influence within American politics. The best time, and Trump actually talks about this, is basically between Grant and Roosevelt. Grant and Roosevelt before Wilson came in 13. This is probably the golden age of America. The reason being is this is when the Industrial Revolution kicked off. This is when the railroads were built. This was the time of the least amount of British influence. The British Empire then kind of consolidated and started to expand eastward within Europe because you had to follow the Byzantine Empire happening at the same time. So it took a lot of attention away from us and what we were doing. And then what happened is they refocused and they utilized large American financial systems, the Morgans and the Mellons and so forth, to basically implement the Federal Reserve Act. Now, there's a lot of resistance by American families towards the Federal Reserve Act. I've talked about this extensively, and I find it kind of an interesting story that when Teddy Roosevelt, do you know how Teddy Roosevelt actually became president?
Remind me.
Well, so Teddy Roosevelt came in, and now I'm going to forget the president's name. Taft was after Roosevelt, so it was Taft, Roosevelt, and somebody else, Garfield. Garfield was shot in Buffalo, New York. Shot and killed. And Teddy Roosevelt was his vice president. So this is really interesting. This is like turn of the century, right? And Garfield's killed in Buffalo, New York. And Roosevelt's in Washington, D.C. and becomes president and gets inaugurated. Well, an hour after Garfield's killed, Teddy Roosevelt talks about how John Jacob Astor from the Astor family sends him a letter by horseback from New York City to Washington, D.C., congratulating him on his rise up to the presidency. Huh? There's no phones, guys. He could have sent a telegraph. It would have took 24 hours to get to him. There's no phones. How did John Jacob Astor know that? But Teddy Roosevelt comes in, and we had a lot of good things happen during this time. Well, Roosevelt leaves, and Taft comes in, I think he was the Secretary of Commerce during that time, right? And Taft comes in, and Taft was kind of a Jeffersonian Republican type, but he starts to basically undo everything that Teddy Roosevelt was doing. And Teddy Roosevelt was Teddy Roosevelt was in Africa during this time. And he came back and he's like, what are you doing, Howard? And Howard's like, dude, you're not president anymore. I am. I can do what I want. Let me implement my own policy change. And Teddy Roosevelt and Taft kind of had this falling out where he's like, no, dude, I'm going to run against you. You got to remember, they're in the same party. So Teddy Roosevelt comes back and he forms a third party called the Bull Moose Party. And he runs against Taft. So you have a three-party race going into the 1912 election. Woodrow Wilson, Howard Taft, Teddy Roosevelt. Well, guess what happens? It's the same thing with George Bush, Ross Perot, is that you have the votes from Teddy Roosevelt take away from Taft, and Woodrow Wilson gets elected by a minority because the Republican votes were split. And what happens when Woodrow Wilson comes in? Well, about a year before this, not even 6 months before this, the one man who supported financially and politically Teddy Roosevelt, him and another man who supported him, American elite, Guggenheim and Astor, both die on the Titanic when J.P. Morgan, James Pierpont Morgan, sent them on the maiden voyage over to London to come back to the United States. And out of 12 people, only 2 showed up, Guggenheim and Astor, and they both died. And they were the 2 people that were dissenting against the creation of the Federal Reserve. And then when Wilson came in, well, sure enough, the Federal Reserve Act came in and the banking dynasties actually took over. Now, I find this interesting as well. And I'm not going to get into the whole conspiratorial aspect. What happened with the Federal Reserve? 1933 is the most important date with the Federal Reserve for people out there. But understand that when you start talking about central banking, all roads lead to London. Okay, all roads lead back to the Rothschild dynasties. They lead back to other banking dynasties that have been basically consumed within this kind of construct of international finance. Now, do you want to know one family that was actually very predominant during that time, a banking family?
I do.
The Mellon family. The Mellon family is
That's a very interesting name. Would that be the same Mellon? I won't get there because I know you're taking us there.
Well, so, when people say that, Israel lobby controls Donald Trump, right? And I say, well, then who's his biggest political campaign donors? And they'll say Miriam Adelson. Like, no, actually, Marian Adelson only donated roughly about 18% of Donald Trump's contributions in 2024. Do you know who had the highest amount of contributions to Donald Trump in his 2024 election?
I'm going to guess that it starts with an M.
Elon Musk. Who came in second?
I'm going to guess that starts with an M too.
Timothy Mellon. BNY.
Don't ask me any more questions because I'm batting 100 right now, bro.
Right,
don't take that.
So Timothy Mellon. So 2 of the top people that donated to Donald Trump, who, if you want to say that money has power, these are the 2 people, is a banking dynasty from the United States of America. Now, where am I going with this? What I'm trying to show you is that there's people in the United States of America that are very wealthy and powerful that want to save the United States of America. They want to get back to the original track of what this country was founded upon. And I believe that the Mellon family is one of them. It's Carnegie Mellon, right? And listen, Dale Carnegie, whether you study him historically or not, was a phenomenal human being in the context of how he operated his mind and how he built up from nothing. Charles Schwab is another one historically we look into that is just phenomenal American. But these are old, well, besides Elon Musk, but the Mellon family goes way, way back, and they are embedded in the infrastructure. They're legacy Americans, right? They've been here since the 1700s. And this is one of the prominent families that actually supports and finances Donald Trump privately right now. Now, ask yourself, why would they put up hundreds of millions of dollars to support Donald Trump? And then look what he's doing. He's undermining the central banking system. He is decimating the infrastructure that the World Bank, the IMF have implemented around the world within third world countries, raping them of interest through loaned dollars. He is dismantling the New Silk Road, also known as the Belt and Roads Initiative that China had been doing for the last 40 years, that comes about through their 100-year plan to basically control all economics, all politics, and all social construct in the world over the next 100 years. And that was heavily financed by who? European financiers, European banks, they went into London, the Rothschild Sassoon family, and they funded the Industrial Revolution for Mao within China. People like George Soros, okay? So when you start to look at this, is you have one side is a banking war. You have under the Democrats, Obama, so forth, in the United States of America, what you had is massive transferences of wealth that moved upwards. It moved from the middle class upwards into the top 1% of the 1%. And that centralization was being done for a very, very specific reason. It was leading into the idea of what we've been talking about with universal basic income, that you'll own nothing. Klaus Schwab, 2014 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, of what their ideals were for the future. And the various different institutions that they've aligned and set up along with this actually validate what I'm talking about. And when you say, well, what institutions? Well, you know, the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum. You might not necessarily know what they're talking about by closed doors, but what you can do is watch the people that go in there and then watch those organizations that those people are members of. The Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Chatting House. All of these are nothing more than establishment organizations that were created after World War II at the beginning of what we consider to be the New World Order, or right now the post-world order, but also understanding it to be what's called the rules-based international order. And the rules-based international order modeled themselves off of how basically the British empire actually ran. So how did it do this? You had the political representation of the world at this middle level. Above this, you had think tanks, NGOs, NPOs, and various different advisory and consultory services. And what would happen is they would put their deep state intelligence apparatus embedded within this advisory level above politicians. That advisory level then would go out and they would advise governments around the world on policy, on regulation, and on laws. And then they would lobby them through their commerce departments to go out there and implement regulation, policy, and laws. And then over the decades, they started taking those same people from the Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Carlyle Group, these types of things, and started implementing them directly into government. Well, not only that, is when they left, you know, maybe they were a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, but now they're over at Goldman Sachs. Or maybe they were a member of the Council of Foreign Relations and they're at Lloyd's of London over in the UK, and now they come out and they're joining Parliament. Like Mark Carney was over at the World Bank, and now he's over at the Prime Minister of Canada. Well, why is that? Because these are globalist figureheads that are working for the banks of London. They are working for what Q referred to as the old guard. The old dynastical European families, the old European aristocrats, the London bankers, the global cabal, the Satanists, however you want to talk about it. And so what Donald Trump has been doing is he's regaining power back over the world while dismantling their systems at the same time. This is why he had 14 months of basically renegotiating the world, going through all these various different countries and renegotiating the United States' trade deficit against them. Do you know why Donald Trump was renegotiating the trade deficit and why we had a deficit over the last 30 years since NAFTA and GATT was actually put in? Do you understand this part?
Break it down for me. And then I want to show you something, because I think something you said might have, if somebody's listening, might have triggered a post, and I want to bring something up on the screen.
So think about it like this. NAFTA and GATT start basically offshoring all manufacturing and processing all around the world. Well, what begins to happen to the United States economy? It begins to shrink, right? But we're still printing trillions and trillions of dollars. So you have increasing inflation. The dollar is growing in growth, but you're having less of it spent. And so you have the debasement of the US dollar slowly over time, but it's used as the international settlement currency. So what happened over time is that the US dollar becomes less and less valuable. So they have to print more and more of it to substantiate the debt. Well, the London bankers started making less and less profitability. So they realized that one thing that they could do, the central banks, one thing that they could do is that they could flip the switch, is they could put the United States of America into a deficit. And if the United States of America is in a trade deficit, then If everything is equal at the end of the day, if everything negates to zero and one is at a surplus and one is at a deficit, that surplus means profitability for somebody. And that's how they were keeping themselves afloat for so long. The United States is always in a trade deficit along with them. So they were always making money on the back end of the surplus. Well, Donald Trump renegotiated that over the last 14 months and brought that back down to either neutral or the United States in the positive. And what did that do? It completely began to dismantle the international banking cartel because they no longer could facilitate business transactions through the old models and the old systems. Not only that, is the infrastructure that they've invested in over the last 20 years is also being dismantled. China being one of the primaries. All of the various different ports, the Panama lease deal, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, all the infrastructure, Iran, all the infrastructure throughout all of Northern Africa, all the things that China's been doing, building out their new Silk Road, Trump is dismantling systematically. Now, why is he doing that? Because it's not an attack on Venezuela. It's not an attack on Iran. It is the dismantling of the old guard system, which is the remnants of the British Empire that went from a governmental system, an empirical system, into an institutional system that ruled and dominated the world, what we call the New World Order, and it is going away. And Donald Trump is to thank for that. And that's the reason that everything that we're watching happening right now is happening. And that's the foot out one door, and the foot into the next door is where we'll go next.
Before we go to that next door, and while you take a breath, shout out to our Broadway gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands Media. Shout out to Jody IVRN gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands Media, and shout out to Seminole 10. Actually, that's a Rumble rant, so we'll be reading that one at the end of the show. And shout out Saint Masshole, who gifted 10 subscriptions to Badlands Media. I want to get to those only because those disappear, folks, and I want to make sure we give love to those people. So while you're giving us this lesson on what's going on, Donald Trump went and posted this now, probably
statehood.
Yes. Statehood, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. President DJT. This would be at 10:57 p.m. Eastern time or 22:57 p.m. Eastern time. I'll bring up 10:57 first because I already have that on the board for you. This one reads April 6, 2018. You can tell me if there's any context. Look at the comments. What the fuck are we looking at here? Trafficking in plain sight. That's regarding Ray Chandler. That post from back then would have been Twitter. And then it reads, report to FBI/DOJ. Watch what happens, spotlight, subject deviation, risk, and end. And if we go to military time at 22:57, that brings us to 2 links, one from the New York Times, one from Fox. The more you know. The one from New York Times is regarding Rod Rosenstein and the 25th Amendment. And the one from Fox is regarding Rosa Plan's another tape release next week report.
I don't think there's any relevance to it. I can tell you exactly what he's talking about right now. And it goes right here. Wow, Venezuela defeated Italy tonight 4-2 in the WBC baseball semifinal. They are looking a really great. Good things are happening to Venezuela lately. I wonder what this magic is all about. Statehood, number 51, anyone. Now, what did we talk about Sunday? We talked about Cuba. We talked about Venezuela. We talked about Northern Canada and Greenland. And we said that either U.S. territories or even potentially statehood for these various different countries, because it brings in a whole new idea. And this is actually part of the conversation we're going to get into. And if DJT is watching, man, I will take over Joe Kent's position, man. And me and Alpha, we will be badass at it. So just letting you know, if you need us, sir, we're here. We're happy to serve. We'll put podcasting on hold while we go work and serve our country.
You want some legit operations against counterterrorism.
I got some ideas.
Make the phone ring, sir. Make the phone ring.
Okay. So I'm talking about the end of the British Empire and all of this stuff. So let's go back into that part, because they've controlled one thing primarily around the world. And do you know what they've controlled 2 things of one thing. Do you know what this primarily has been?
Shoot it.
Resource and access to resources. So various different trade corridors and accessibility to those corridors. And then they controlled the resources themselves. I mean, we talked about this Sunday night with BP, British Petroleum, installing the Shah, right? And then the Shah realizing he's getting ripped off and basically trying to throw Britain out. And then they overthrow the Shah again. And Khomeini, who's over in France, in exile, gets flown back by British intelligence back into Iran, who takes over and shuts off all the Western world. But BP is then the brokers that deal in the back end because he accepted their deal, and they move underneath various different sanctions through Oman and start flowing oil out of Iran back at their profitability rates through BP. I mean, British Petroleum and other British oil companies own a massive amount of oil in Iraq. You want to know the two biggest corporate owners of oil in Iraq?
Fire.
Britain and China.
Reference the Britain one. Do you want to give a specific company name if you're tracking?
I think one's KNG, and the other one is BP. But this is what I want people to begin to see. The other night, do you remember what I said? Did I show you this post that I put on the other night? I don't know if this was Sunday night or not. Do you remember this post? Game, set, match.
No.
NATO was given the opportunity to save face with Trump. They said no. My speculation is the U.S. will be leaving NATO relatively soon, right? Well, what just happened with this? Let me pull this up. Where the hell is it?
Because I'm looking for something I want to show you too, because I think it flows into all this. It's something me and the Colonel have talked about last year, and there's relevance now.
And I said, I'll just leave this right here. And what is this? Donald Trump today on Truth Social. The United States have been informed by most of our NATO allies that they do not want to get involved with our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East. This, despite the fact that almost every country strongly agreed with what we were doing and that Iran cannot in any way, shape, or form be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. I am not surprised by their action. However, because I considered NATO, where we spend hundreds of billions of dollars per year protecting those same countries, to be a one-way street, we will protect them, but they will do nothing for us in particular in a time of need. Fortunately, we have decimated Iran's military. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and radar is gone. And perhaps most importantly, their leaders at virtually every level are gone, never to threaten us or our Middle Eastern allies or the world again, because of the fact that we have had such military success. We no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did. Likewise, Japan, Australia, and South Korea. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far the most powerful country anywhere in the world, we do not need the help of anyone. Thank you for your attention on this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And that's a massive signifier. It's validating what we talked about Sunday night, how Trump is most likely going to position this to NATO. NATO is going to decline, and he's going to utilize this as a methodology to get out of NATO. And if you remember in the national defense strategy that they put out in 2026, Trump actually, that it was actually mentioned in there that there's going to be a 5-year review of NATO's usefulness to the United States of America in alignment with their national security doctrine and their national defense doctrine. And basically what Trump is confirming right here is that NATO's a one-way street. They want us to always jump in. If Russia attacks them, then we got Article 5. But when Iran's shooting ballistic missiles in the U.S. bases, they want nothing to do with us. They don't want to help one bit. And I'm telling you right now, everybody on social media, this is what we're saying about everybody on social media, bro, is like everybody on social media is like, Donald Trump's doing so well in Iran that he's asking for help around the world. No, you schmucks. He's not asking for help. He's putting these countries on the spot to show that they won't stand up in the time of need. He's putting them out there and showing the United States of America and the people around the world that, hey, when I need the help of NATO, when I need the help of Australia or South Korea, guess what? They don't rise. They're not around. They don't want to help us. So let me ask you this. Why are we subsidizing their defense? Why are we paying hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign countries for defense when they don't help us? Now, people want to complain about $3 billion a year since 2013 to Israel, but guess what? I know how the scheme works. $3 billion goes into Israel. $3 billion comes out of Israel back into U.S. defense infrastructure, and weapons flow back to Israel. I get that. But guess what? Israel will stand up when we need them, won't they? I'm just saying, look, I don't like Benjamin Netanyahu, people. I do not like Benjamin Netanyahu. I think that he did atrocious crimes in Gaza. All right. I'm not a supporter of him. I'm not a supporter of the political centers in Israel. But I'm telling you that's why Donald Trump likes Israel. Because when he says, hey, I need your help, guess what Israel's going to do? They're going to help him. That's what he wants in an ally. And if you notice, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, nothing. Nobody wants to help Donald Trump. And I think that's very, very telling. And that's what this post was all about. But it also signifies right back at it. Did you see where Mertz and Macron and Steimer came out and they said that we were not notified at all? We found out the same way everybody else did on the news when the U.S. and Israel began striking Iran. Now, why didn't he tell their allies? This is why he didn't tell their allies. This is why he didn't tell them.
They would have sabotaged it.
They would have sabotaged it. Moshtaba Khomeini, for anybody out there who doesn't know, Moshtaba Khomeini, which is Ali Khomeini's son, the Ayatollah's son, the new Ayatollah. By the way, there's a psyop going on with this. I'll explain it here in a second.
And before you get too far that way, I want to bring us back to the oil before we leave that conversation.
Well, this is about the oil. So number one is when Khomeini died and Khamenei came in, Robini and all these guys, when they came in, basically, the Iranian oil money never went to the people of Iran. It went to the Grand Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah, who had a net worth of over $48 billion. His son, Moshe Toba, he lived all throughout Europe. He lived in Russia, and he has a real estate empire. His real estate empire is primarily financed by two Israeli bankers out of Israel. Now, start to think about that for a second. The majority of their money moves through the Isle of Man through various different shell banking organizations owned by London banking cartels. His billions of dollars are held by UK banks, London banks.
So
He's financed by Israel.
So let me inject this into the conversation, because I think you can probably weave this in. And if not, then maybe we can bring the Colonel on one of these DEFCONs to elaborate on this. So Colonel tags me in this. She goes, my thought exactly. This is Colonel Towner Watkins. If you guys aren't familiar with her, great follow, phenomenal information. I consider her the authority when it comes to Operation Gladio. My thought exactly. And yes, we did an entire show on Alpha Warrior, on Robert Sensei. This was very interesting, folks. And his ties to the CIA, state, DEA, Iran-Contra network. Sensei's wife looks like she was admin support for a network of front companies as well. Now, what are we talking about here? Because this is her quote posting this. This post comes from Dawson's Field. So does this mean that Robert Sensei has flipped? 35-year-old case sees action just a few months after the bankers at BCCI who laundered the money for Iran-Contra arms sales get busted for trying to work with the cartels. And let me zoom in on these two posts real quick. I'll go with this one first. His accomplice, Robert Sensei, who served as CIA's money launderer at BCCI during the Iran-Contra scandal. Sensei was the banker laundering the funds. We recently learned that Epstein was connected to laundering those same funds. When we go to the next one, Sensei was working for CIA, BCCI, the Kuwaitis, the Republican National Committee, and probably several other players. I haven't been able to verify everything in this article, but it's an interesting read. Now, there's a lot to this Robert Sensei guy. So I'll just give real quick gist. When we were researching some of the, again, this case is over 30 years old. None of the articles wanted to mention this guy's name. Like, you had to go dig deep into it. They kept bringing up another player. But again, bringing this to the royal family, the Kuwaiti royal family, BCCI, and stuff. I wanted to see if there was any relevance to this and the timing of this with what you're talking about right now with the oil.
Well, why don't you give us an overview of Iran-Contra, and then I will take it from that intermediary.
Fire off, because I don't want to misstate it, man. So fire off.
Okay. So what we're talking about, you just said Epstein connection, right?
Correct.
So think about it as we're funding against terrorism and we're flowing weapons in there. So when we start to look at who were the weapons coming from, okay? So the CIA was utilizing arms traffickers to smuggle weapons into people who were perceived to be our enemies. Now, here's an interesting part. Jeffrey Epstein worked for Bear Stearns, and then eventually worked in tangent with another company known as BCCI Bank, which obviously came over federal grand jury indictments in the 1990s. And this is where Sensei actually comes in. Now, what was Sensei in comparison to Jeffrey Epstein? They were the same exact thing. They were financial intermediaries in a system. When you start to look at the intelligence apparatus, we always say the name CIA, right? CIA, oh my God, the CIA's at it again. When we're talking about the CIA people, we're not talking about Langley. We're not talking about the people over at the CIA, the operations department. We're not talking about the special agent. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is a guy that gets embedded in Latin America and Cuba in the 1970s, and he begins getting funded through money that is coming through proxy networks, and he begins building a whole intelligence apparatus network out that is outside of the scope of his original primary operation, but he's still answering to people above him who are giving him direction and taking cuts of the money. That's what we're talking, a deep state intelligence apparatus. How do you move trillions of dollars under the radar of governments, intelligence agencies, and militaries around the world, tax-free, without anybody noticing, and then take that trillions of dollars and reinvest it back into the global infrastructure? How do you do that? This is what they were doing. And how did you do that? You need financial intermediaries between the dark money channels. So you would need to move the money through various different Caribbean banks. Oh, well, London banks, Caribbean proxy banks, right? London banks. And then they would move it into financial instruments. One of the top arms smugglers in the 1980s was a guy by the name of Aden Khashoggi. Aden Khashoggi was one of the top clients of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, you guys might remember the name Aden Khashoggi because you remember during Trump's first term, the reporter from was it MSNBC or CNN or Al Jazeera, whatever he was, that he got chopped up into 1-inch pieces and he was completely conscious during the whole time by MBS, and he got to watch the 1-inch cubes and they fed him himself while he was still conscious and alive. Khashoggi, yeah, that was Aden Khashoggi's nephew. Okay, but Khashoggis were very powerful within the Saudi Arabia in that area, but he was an arms smuggler. That's how he made all of his money. And he provided the arms for both sides of Iran-Contra. So how do they move that money in the intelligence circuits? Well, this is how they were moving the money. People like Sensei, people like Jeffrey Epstein were the ones that would take in these dark monies through these shady banks in the Caribbean or offshore. They would pull it into investments. They would put it into pension funds. They would put it into the gold and silver. They put it into the stocks and ETFs. And then what happens is that pays a dividend out. And that dividend pays back out to legitimate bank accounts of various people on the investment infrastructure, and everybody gets paid out. And now that money is completely laundered and cleaned. And this is what went on for a very, very long time. It probably still goes on today. So what does that have to do with oil? Well, in the context...
Well, and just to remember, a lot of this arms trafficking, just so people... A lot of this made its way into the hands of Hezbollah. A lot of this made its hands into the people in Nicaragua. Like a lot of the places and areas where we kind of see action now were involved in the places where a lot of these arms made it to back then as well.
Well, the playbook is old as day. I mean, John McCain and running guns and weapons, right? Guns and missile systems and money through Libya in Africa all the way up into Syria. Right? What was going on there? They were arming various different Libyan rebel groups that eventually joined forces with ISIS and ISIL, right? This eventually overthrew Gaddafi. This is what Benghazi was all about, because you had the ambassador call Hillary Clinton in the middle of the night saying, hey, there's something going on here. We discovered something. That 2 days later, he's dead. And what did they discover? They discovered an arms running and currency running operation that was going directly through the U.S. Embassy in Libya that was being ran and operated by the intelligence networks. And Ambassador Chris Stevens died because of that. And Hillary Clinton was the one running the show. But it really wasn't Hillary Clinton running the show. Hillary Clinton was simply an intermediary with power who could order and dictate what was going on. It was people like... her national security advisor or chief of staff at the time, Jake Sullivan, who were actually running the show. And you can actually find the ties directly back to Jake Sullivan in Libya, Benghazi during this time frame. And this is how John McCain funded all of ISIS and ISIL and got them all built up out of Syria. And what just happened recently? What, we liberated Syria from all of that? We cut the constraints of Syria. Now, going back into the context of oil, oil is an energy. Energy is very, very scarce on this planet. We might say that oil is renewable energy. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't think that matters right now. What matters is that we produce this amount of energy. So I want people to start to begin to see this, Alpha. Right now, we produce and have this amount of energy right now per year. And in 5 years, we're going to need this much. That's the problem. This is the problem that Donald Trump's trying to solve right now, is that globally, we produce as a planet this amount of energy. And in 5 years, we're going to have to produce this amount of energy. My finger is pointing up because I can't even reach the magnitudes higher that I need to go. If I was going to raise this limit from floor level to here, this is about 3.5 feet, okay? Now, you would have to raise this up about 6,000 to 7,000 feet to bring about the percentage increase of the amount of energy we're going to need in 5 years.
That
now,
the American people are not going to pay for.
That the American, well, and here's the thing, is American people are paying for it right now. They are subsidizing electric bills and energy costs throughout our country right now through the average payer. This is why people are seeing their bills go up to $1,200, $1,500 because of data center utilization because of artificial intelligence.
That's why Trump signed that executive order, if you guys weren't tracking, about 2 weeks ago, where he says you guys are going to carry the costs of the additional requirement here. And you guys wasn't us, it was these companies.
So I want to go into the Bibi Netanyahu stuff, but I want to finish this part out. What does Trump keep on saying he's going to do? Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But now he's saying he's going to go in and do what? He's going to take the uranium. Remember, we're doing Iranian uranium, right? Remember, Putin came out the other day and said, we will go in and we will take all of Iran's uranium. And Trump said, no. And now Trump today came out and said, we're going to probably send a special operations team in to grab Iran's uranium. So number one is you have oil. Number two is you have energy corridor, the Straits of Hormuz. And number three, you have uranium. All three things deal primarily with one thing, energy.
Energy.
Now, why does Trump...
Just real quick, we're gonna hint at why that energy is so important, right? Like not just technology, but a certain thing within technology that gives everybody the EBGBs, right?
Yeah, like, and I can get into that part right here. So I wrote a blog, or not a blog, I just wrote a post today, and I asked the question, why does Trump want Iranian uranium? What are your thoughts? Why does Trump want Iranian uranium?
Part of it makes me wonder is if we're going to get back some signature coding that's going to show that some of it might even be ours.
Well, most of it is ours, I think. I think a lot of it came from the Uranium One scandal.
Yeah. So, because I'm curious for that one, and two, I mean, he's not going to let China get their hands on it. It's going to be us. We need Russia. The power, or Russia. We need the power. We need to be ahead of all of them when it comes to that power.
So, what is one thing that the Department of Energy, the Trump administration, the DOW have been pushing over the last 12 months? They just launched the brand new one. They put it on a plane and sent it off to a military base, didn't they?
Yeah, the reactors.
Micro nuclear reactors. You have Google, Amazon, and Microsoft investing in commercial nuclear power, buying up 3 Mile Island. Well, what do you need if you're going to run a nuclear reactor? Uranium? Well, guess what? The amount of uranium mined each year on this planet is minuscule in comparison to the need 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. If we start looking out, if we zoom out, we start to look at data centers that need micronuclear reactors or nuclear power plants that are coming up to run data centers. Now you need 10 to 20 to 50x of the uranium production a year. Well, guess what? There's no place on the planet that can do that right now. So if you're Donald Trump and you're looking at the fruits of war, okay, well, Iran's got uranium. They don't need it because they're not going to get a bomb. Let's just go in and secure that uranium. At least we'll have more than everybody else. Okay, great. He goes and secures that. He secures the Straits of Hormuz, which is an energy corridor. And then he's also going to go in and take the oil, right? He said, I'm going to take Iranian oil. And then we're going to give the money, the profits back to the Iranian people. That's huge. But also what happened, and this is also indicative of what we were talking about before. Now, the Straits of Hormuz is really, really important here because that whole prior conversation that we were talking about with the old guard situation, I want you to, people need to see, I don't know, people saw this, okay? And I know I keep on saying people need to see this, and I hope that people are following. So when Iran closed the Straits of Hormuz, they didn't like bring down a drawbridge and a great gate and put a gate up to the Straits of Hormuz and say, it's closed, you can't go through here, okay? There's nothing blocking the Straits of Hormuz. It was simply Iran coming out with what's known as the Iran terror premium and saying the straits are closed. Anybody goes through, we're going to bomb the shit out of you. Now, why does that matter for the ships? Because the ship, well, because the ships have to have insurance to transit on maritime authority, which means that in order to go through the Straits of Hormuz, their insurance carrier has got to cover it. Now, do you know who the largest insurance carrier of maritime transport is in the world, with over 85% of all seaborne companies going through this one small company that's been around for over 300 years? You know who it is?
Tell us, because you told me.
Lloyd's of London. You know where they're located?
I think London. It's in the
name. London. Now, when the Straits of Hormuz closed, Lloyd's of London did what? They pulled all the insurance. Well, guess what? The next day, Donald Trump comes out and says, oh, and by the way, to any maritime company out there, the United States of America will now insure you to go through the Straits of Hormuz. And that's when the traffic started picking up. Lloyd's of London within hours came back and said, oh, we apologize. Yeah, we will insure everybody that goes through there. Now, Peter Navarro, he's an economist in Trump administration. He wrote an article a while back about this, and he called it the Iran terror premium. And basically what it is that whenever the oil markets are skyrocketing up $90 a barrel, $120 a barrel, it's all about what's called the Iran terror premium. And this is basically Khomeini, the Ayatollah, the IRGC doing something in the Middle East that is sparking outrage and then threatening the Strait of Hormuz. And when they threaten the Strait of Hormuz, you get a $5 to $15 increase per barrel of oil. And if you mark this out over the last 30 years, if you just look at every time the Iran terror premium has occurred, the premium per barrel goes up, and that's equivalent to about $30 trillion over 30 years. Now, who's the benefactor of that? Well, when oil barrel prices go up and the threat level in the Middle East goes up, does Lloyd's of London increase those insurance premiums? Absolutely, they do. What about the London financial bankers and the central bankers who are actually providing the liquidity for corporations around the world to move that oil? So people, this is a little idea of how the global trade infrastructure operates. When you have $1 billion of oil that's leaving port and it's going to go to another foreign nation, the company that's buying that oil is not paying $1 billion immediately upright for that billion barrels. They don't have it. Nobody has that level of liquidity to provide that except for banks. So what do? Is they borrow it through the infra banking structure, the intra banking infrastructure. They take short interim loans out at a percentage interest rate. So they'll borrow the money from a London bank or a large financial institution, primarily based in London, and they'll be paying interest on that oil at $100 a barrel. Now, who controls the majority of the derivatives trade? Most of them are in New York or London.
So you covered this, but it went through fast. And I brought up a little thing to read real quick, just to make sure everybody's kind of understanding, when you're talking BP, right? And the oil company. So I just want to read a little snippet to people. And then definitely, if you want to expand on it, you can. You mentioned it, but I just want to make sure everybody's up to speed on this. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company, APOC, Founded in 1909 after major discoveries became crucial to British industrial and naval power. The British government acquired a 51% stake in 1914, a sparking long-term tensions over revenue, culminating in the 1953 CIA-backed coup against the Iranian Prime Minister Mossadegh, following his nationalization of the oil industry. So I wanted to plug in that little piece. There's so much more to that.
Oh my
that
God,
statement.
we could spend hours on just that.
You could do a series on just that. But just to make people understand, well, London and BP and Iran, like,
well, go back to 1912 as well. You have what's known as the Belford. What is it? Lord Belford is the one who granted the land of Palestine to the Rothschilds, of which that same land grant was utilized in 1948 for the Israel settlement in the Middle East, in Palestine, which then became the settlement of Israel. Who were the first? Let me ask you this. How long were Jews going into that area of Palestine? They started back in the 1870s. Did you know that?
I did know they started that far back.
The first migration in the 20th centuries of Jews into modern day Israel or into Palestine during that time was actually done by the Nazis. The Nazis actually made deals with the Zionists. You can find these old coins. It's Zionist on one side, Star David on one side, and Nazi on the other. And they were Zionists who basically aligned with the Nazis, and they started to exile and migrate out and go into Palestine in the 1930s. That obviously didn't turn out too well for them a few years later. But when you start to go into the idea of Israel as an establishment, I mean, British intelligence is who trained the Mossad in its early years of formation. So, I mean, the connectivity that goes back. I mean, the Central Intelligence Agency and all of whether it's MK Artichoke, MK Ultra, all of the MK programs. I mean, these derived in the 1930s out of the Tavistock Institute, which was ran by Colonel Orange, which was a British colonel. I mean, we got to do our history here, and we got to start integrating it back because all roads lead to London. So,
and I'm glad we're going here because it's been a couple of years for those that have listened to me on these virtual town halls on X. Well, like, everybody wants to focus on the curly sideburns, but in the end, if you think that's where it ends, you've missed it. This is always going to take you back to the crown.
Yep. So why oil? Why energy? Why is this all about energy? Well, let me go back into the Russia thing real quick because I didn't finish this. So Lloyd's of London, right? They were doing this. So oil prices, when the Straits of Hormuz closed down, did what? They skyrocketed, didn't they? So that means the London bankers make a lot of money.
A lot of
money. But then something happened, and the oil prices dropped. First time in history, they went up, and then the next day they dropped. Do you know what that something was?
That was Trump making a statement.
That was Trump actually having Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, reduce certain sanctions on Russia, which freed up hundreds of barrels of oil back into the market. Now, you want to know what's interesting about the relinquishing of certain sanctions that they did? It only targeted a certain amount of Russian oil that was seaborne, that was seafaring. It was out at sea. Okay? Now, this is interesting. These were Russian tankers, so they only released the sanctions on Russian oil tankers that were currently out at sea. You want to know when those oil tankers went out to sea?
How long ago, brother? Tell me.
About August 22nd, 2025, the day after the Alaska summit, when Russia filled up through Arctic LNG, filled up all of these oil tankers and sent them out to sea with no buyers and just left them sitting out there in the Arctic.
Almost like somebody knew what was going to happen.
Almost like Putin and Trump knew what was going to happen.
That is pretty fucking slick, dude.
Now, people are like, there's no sovereign alliance. Really?
Come on.
I beg to differ. No, the best one I'm hearing all day is Putin is providing strategic satellite imagery and guidance control to Iran. No, No, he's not. Like Mojtaba Khomeini is in Russia. No, he's not. The doozy I heard today is that Trump is weighing the option of sending Delta Force into Russia and sparking a whole new World War III to go kill Khomeini. Get out of here. Dude, these people are retarded. And they're on Fox News. They're on the top podcast in the country saying this shit. And it's like, slap yourself. 20th century warfare is over, people. Welcome to fifth generation unrestricted.
And that is why the people within, he got so excited he burned out his camera. Hopefully he'll make it back. That is why you have some of the more reasonable voices in the administration that are like, mainstream media and a large portion of alt media have no idea what's going on. If you can hear me, Josh, just so we know, you got stuck in the matrix. Your timelines have collapsed. Let me remove him, see if I can bring him back, and he is not there. So hopefully he'll recognize that, folks. And with that, I will take this opportunity to get to our next ad. You guys should see the face that I'm seeing right now. And try to buy Josh some time for him to get back. So enjoy this one, folks, and we'll be right back right now.
Legend says, on St. Patrick's Day, a beard without oil is just a chin with ambition. But a beard with soft disclosure beard oil, that's true treasure. Spiced vanilla, naked, smooth as a leprechaun's getaway plan. Soft enough to impress your barber, bold enough to confuse a baby goat. And this boar bristle brush tames your beard like it holds the crown coin. Every bottle is American made, which means when you buy Soft Disclosure, you're supporting 6 American small businesses. That's not luck, that's capitalism with cheekbones. And while you're at it, try our mint green deodorant, because even legends need fresh pits. Soft Disclosure, go for gold. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code TINYBRIGHT for 15% off.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Promo code does not apply to bundle discounts.
Patriots, the fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. Packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville's calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.
So, folks, if you haven't already, the second exclusive live stream will be this Thursday, the 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you know you're not going to be able to make it to Nashville, get those virtual tickets now. You'll get emailed the link. You can join that conversation. They've been pretty fire, right? You're gonna get 60 minutes to 90 minutes of some fire, and then we'll go from there. I see the guy that blew out the internet out in his hometown.
Dude, people on Rumble got some jokes out there, man. I've been sitting here watching on my phone like, you son of a bitches.
You should. Well, YouTube was very funny with their thoughts on YouTube. I'm like, so what got him, folks? Was it a direct energy weapon? Was it a rod of God? Stop him from talking about that stuff. He's over.
I wonder if Josh talks in his sleep and debates. He's probably a trip.
But because I don't want you guys to forget, remember, go to badlandsmedia.tv/events so you can get those tickets. And like I said, get those virtual tickets. If you know you're not going to miss, get it now. Be a part of that. It's a private Telegram chat for everybody that's going to be part of GART Nashville, whether it's virtually or in person. You don't want to miss it. Like I said, great friendships, great people. To get us back on point with this conversation, I'm trying to remember, what was the last thing that you were saying?
I was talking about Russia oil, and then I was going to actually say that it's actually good for China. Why is China not involved in Iran at all? And the reason is because even though China was buying cheap oil from Iran, they still have to pay a premium when the strait gets closed. They still buy Saudi oil and Qatari oil and so forth. And so, with the Strait of Hormuz potentially being under the control of, let's just say, other nations other than Iran, what you're going to get is you're going to get free trade actually open over there, and an energy corridor that's kind of controlled by the United States Navy or the U.S. power homogeny around the world. And this kind of brings us all into why. Why is energy and resources so critically important? Why did we go after Venezuela and secure their oil, now bringing it over to the United States to be refined and then selling it back to China and giving the profits directly to the Venezuelan people? Why are we trying to do the same thing in Iran?
And before you answer that, I want to plug in the press secretary's response to Joe Kent, because there's something in the very end of her statement that kind of stood out to me. And I'm like, that's interesting on what she's saying here. But it does play, I mean, it's a larger picture, but let me just read this because it's not too long. And I want everybody to kind of track where we're going. So you guys saw the Joe Kent message that's from earlier today. 12 hours ago, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says this: there are many false claims in this letter, but let me address one specifically, that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. This is the same false claim that the Democrats and some in liberal media have been repeating over and over. As President Trump has clearly and explicitly stated, he had strong and compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack the United States first. This evidence was compiled from many sources and factors. President Trump would never make the decision to deploy military assets against a foreign adversary in a vacuum. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. The Iranian regime is evil. It proudly killed Americans, waged war against our country, and openly threatened us all the way up to the launch of Operation Epic Fury. Iran was aggressively expanding their short-range ballistic missiles to combine with their naval assets to give themselves immunity, meaning that they would have a degree of capabilities that would give them immunity to hold us and the rest of the world hostage. This goes back to that terror thing you were talking about for the insurance. The regime aimed to use those ballistic missiles as a shield to continue achieving their ultimate goal, nuclear weapons. The president, his top negotiators, gave that regime every single possible opportunity to abandon this unacceptable course by permanently giving up their nuclear ambitions in exchange for sanctions relief, free nuclear fuel, and potential economic partnerships with our country. But they would not say yes to peace because obtaining nuclear weapons was their fundamental goal. President Trump ultimately made that determination that a joint attack with Israel would greatly reduce the risk to American lives that would come from a first strike by the terrorist Iranian regime and address this imminent threat to America's national security interests. All of this led to Trump arriving at the determination that this military operation was necessary for U.S. national security, which is why he launched the massively successful Operation Epic Fury. The commander-in-chief determines what does and does not constitute a threat, because he is the one constitutionally empowered to do so, and because the American people went to the ballot box and entrusted him and him alone to make such final judgments. And finally, this is the part I want everybody to pay attention to. The absurd allegation that President Trump made this decision based on influence of others, even foreign countries, is both insulting and laughable. President Trump has been remarkably consistent and has said for decades that Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. Now listen to what she says here. As someone who actually witnesses President Trump's decision-making process on a daily basis, I can attest to the fact that he is always looking to do what's best interest of the United States of America, period, America first. And I think this ties into how this all conversation kind of unfolded in the very beginning, that he leaked, referencing Joe Kent. He got caught. He got removed out of the intel briefs. So he wasn't getting that intel anymore. But on top of that, she's also saying from someone who actually witnessed President Trump's decision. I take that as what she's saying is, Joe, you've never been in the room where he's had to make a decision.
Damn right.
I have.
Absolutely. And you know what? That message confirms what you and I talked about last week on DEFCON and the week before, where I said They said, look, Bibi Netanyahu came out there to Mar-a-Lago and said, Trump, look, we have good intelligence that they're going to preemptively strike the United States assets and Israel. And Trump said, hold on, let me confirm it with our own intelligence. And he did. And that's when the decision was ultimately made. And we got this from a very, very good source, that this intelligence was validated independently, not only so much that Trump pushed Israel's timeline forward because of this. So and it's really important in context here, because Tucker and Candace and Joe Kent and all of these stooges out there that are now turning on Donald Trump, this is coordinated. And you want to know who's behind that coordination? Well, guess what? It's not Israel. It's not the CIA. Okay? It's something completely different. If you want to know, who have I been talking about all night that is set to lose trillions of dollars and massive amounts of power? Who did Donald Trump downgrade through his national security doctrine and his national defense doctrine over the last few months? He downgraded Europe. He downgraded the UK. He called them irrelevant to the furthering of the global order because they've wrecked their countries with rampant immigration. They didn't pay attention to their GDP and have declining GDP, that they don't stand up as first world nations. You don't think that those countries are going to fight back through the deep state intelligence apparatus? Absolutely they are. And they're going to deploy all assets when necessary. And that's what we're seeing. So
now, before you carry on from that, because words matter, and this is a word that we've consistently used on DEFCON, Q After Hours, Guardian, and the Overwatch, all the shows that we do. And I've never heard this administration use this word. And maybe I've missed it, but I doubt it with as much attention we pay to it. The press secretary used the word create a vacuum. And that is something we're constantly saying on this show. People that want you to only focus on one country, curly sideburns, and not bring up anything, the Crown, the CCP, the Muslim Brotherhood. I've said it, Josh has said it, we've had this conversation. What they're saying is they're not in pursuit of America's sovereignty. They're in pursuit of everybody recognizing, hey, I don't like AIPAC being in our government. We only focus there. And then we all say, yes, let's get this out of our government and create a vacuum. That's the word we always use in that conversation, create a vacuum. And then what happens? Whatever agenda that they're pushing, that entity plugs in their power, whether it's the CCP, whether it's the Crown, whether it's the Muslim Brotherhood. People that truly are in pursuit of American sovereignty address all the threats that are positioned against America, so that when that vacuum of power is created, the only entity that was ever designed to replace it steps in, and that's we the people. But please continue, brother.
I'm in the process of writing this new Substack article. And I think that this is really important because I hope that it's going to bring people a new perspective. And so, for most of modern history, we were taught to view national security through a very, very narrow lens, right? An intermediate threat to the United States of America from a missile, from an army, from a terrorist network. It was something that you could point to a map and identify in a briefing. That definition no longer holds. Over the last 14 months, global events have made something increasingly clear. The United States does not define national security primarily by who can attack it directly. It defines national security by who can disrupt the system that allows it to function, power project, and maintain stability. In other words, infrastructure, energy, resource reallocation, accessibility to resources becomes a matter of national security. Now, people are like, well, why is that a matter of national security? Because we are in a transitioning global order. If you go back to the WEF meeting in Davos, if you go back to what everybody was saying from the European nations, they said that the rules-based international order is dead. In other words, the influence of Chatham House, of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome, of the Trilateral Commission, of NGOs over the United States government, the years of that is over. It's done. That their agendas have been shut down, defunded, and their people are being ejected out of positions. This means that we're in a transitionary period into a new world order. Now, I know that word scares a lot of people, But understand what I mean by that is we have the ability right now to forge, to mold something completely new in how this world operates on the social, the cultural, the geopolitical, and the economic level. And Donald Trump over the last 14 months has been laying the framework for that. But here's the thing. I wrote another blog a few weeks ago called The 500-Year Leap. The 500-Year Leap is about how we're about to advance 500 years technologically in less than 20 years. And I can lay out the whole premise for why this is true. And for everybody out there, I had someone that is really big in the tech world hit me up and say, yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's happening right now. Okay. And Alpha knows who this person is. But this is what I want you to understand about it. With the advent of artificial intelligence, you might hate that word. You might not think it's cool. You might not use it. You might say it's a devil or a demon or it's Satan. It doesn't matter. Pandora's box has been open and you are not putting it back in. I want everybody, you're not putting it back in. That path is set, which means that now we are on a different trajectory. Now it's about the attainment of artificial superintelligence. This is a field that I've worked in for the last few years, consulted in cybersecurity for that. But we're moving towards artificial superintelligence. And in the race to artificial superintelligence, it's not a matter of what company or corporation is going to obtain it first. It's what country is going to obtain it and nationalize it first. There's only 2 countries right now in the world that are in that competition. And that's China and the United States of America. Now, artificial intelligence has 3 points towards its continuous infrastructure. At the top level, we understand it as data. In the intermediary level, the middle level, we know it as computational power. And computational power is driven simply by raw energy, resources. So when you ask yourself, why is Donald Trump reallocating world resources and accessibility to trade and dismantling the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative that they acquired through unrestricted warfare? This is why. Because if China attains artificial superintelligence before the United States of America, if you have not went and read China's 100-year plan, if you have not went and checked out the PLA's doctrine on unrestricted warfare, I recommend you do. Because they show an America with no Americans. They show an America where they control the farmlands of the United States of America, and there's not many people around when there's continuous automation, and you can take from that what you will. In other words, we're fighting for the survival of our country, of our people, of our culture, of our way of life. And this is what Donald Trump is out there trying to preserve by going in and preemptively striking Iran and controlling the energy corridor, the accessibility of that energy itself, that uranium, getting it out of there. And then also cutting that leg of Chinese energy triangle off from China. That's what Venezuela was all about. That's what the Panama Canal, Greenland, Northern Canada, that's what all of this is about. Because we're about to hit what's known as the Genesis mission, which I believe is going to ramp up and start up here in the next few months. The Genesis mission takes in 40,000 scientists from the United States of America and various different experts in their field. And it begins to integrate into this artificial intelligence, various different artificial intelligence into collaboration, various different national laboratories, all patents, all scientific documentation, experimentation for the last 40 years begin to get uploaded into it. One of the reasons you're seeing the declassification of the UAP UFO files because they want that information uploaded. And they want that uploaded into the Genesis mission.
Trump's going to have to do that speech prior to that Genesis project being like
there's going to be there's a classified. So I already know that there's a classified version of the Genesis mission and there's an unclassified version. But what it's going to do is it's going to solve biology, physics, and math in no time, especially when it hits ASI. It's going to be beyond. But then it's going to innovate. Then engineers begin to come in. Automation begins to come in. And we're going to technologically advance very rapidly over a 20-year period. Now, what does that mean? I want to ask every American out there, whether you agree with Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, I don't care. In 20 years from now in the United States of America, Do you want to have the freedoms, the rights, and the liberties that you currently have? Do you want to have all the opportunities that you currently have? Do you want to be able to call yourself an American citizen, whether it's Democrat or Republican that's in political office? If your answer is overwhelmingly yes, then you better damn well support President Donald Trump, because he is doing everything in his power to ensure that 20 years from now, our children, our children's children have those opportunities, have those privileges, have those rights, and have those freedoms, and have those liberties. Because if he didn't do something, if Kamala Harris came in, it would be over. We would be done as a nation. 85% of our population would perish over the next 20 years. China would take over all critical infrastructure. They would take over all farmland, and the United States of America would cease to exist. And when they obtain super intelligence, it's over. So thank Donald Trump if you hate him.
Technology and artificial intelligence would have been used for enslavement, not for freedom.
That's right. You would have had a commie-fascist new world order with a technocratic nanny surveillance state. And that was what was coming to us through what I call the Anglo-Saxon, the British, the Western New World Order. And it was basically the design that they set up in China back in the 1960s, funding Mao, the Industrial Revolution, and then financing massive buildings within China, massive infrastructure build-outs in China during the 1990s after Bill Clinton signed NAFTA and GATT and sent all of our jobs over there. That infrastructure was built out by Western financiers. And they did that on purpose because you had public-private partnerships that were actually in collaboration with the Chinese government. The Chinese government owns all of the businesses that operate within China, and it controls all of their moves. This is what the TikTok deal was all about.
Jilly T17 in the Rumble chat says, pardon the language, folks, how the fuck do we wake up the stupid sleeping Americans? Here's my quick answer to that. Then you can expand on it if you want, Josh. We don't have to wake up all the Americans. All right. One, the number we've been told is not correct. It's inflated. Two, we don't have to worry about NPCs. The only Americans we have to worry about waking up are the ones that are actionable. The real people, the actual players. And when you look at it through that lens, it doesn't become so far-fetched or so unattainable. People like you that are searching out podcasts, searching out Substacks, these are the people that are seeking it because they're going to do something with it. Even if at a minimum, it's just generating conversation. Those are the only people we have to worry about reaching. And in a conversation that we had with General Flynn, this was probably over 2 years ago, Josh, I had asked the general, what's that magic number when it comes to the court of public opinion? And if so, how far are we from that? And he was very strategic and careful how he answered it, because he never gave me the percentage. What he told us was, we already have it. Mm-hmm. And that was over 2 years ago, folks. And so don't get so, a lot of times we think, the doomers and the black pillars aren't getting to us. They are to some people. And I can tell, by some of the questions, just recognize that there is a significant impact that's happening right now. And that's why you see this deep state in such a panic.
Yeah. I'm looking at the time. I know we got a few things I wanted to cover real quick. So I saw someone comment that said, what do you think about Trump's comments on Mark Levin? Let me explain this for people. I want you to do the comparability to Mark Levin and Tucker Carlson. Okay. Donald Trump is about loyalty. If Donald Trump tells you a secret, can you keep it? Guess what? Tucker couldn't. Tucker would somehow intertwine it into his narrative and put that information out there. But you know what? I guarantee you that President Trump has said massive amounts of stuff to Mark Levin that Mark Levin's never, ever whispered a word to anybody in the world about. And you don't have to like Mark Levin. I don't like him. But you know what? Donald Trump trusts him. That's what that's about. Donald Trump is saying, you might not like Mark Levin. He might be pro-Israel and not America first, and I don't care, because you want to know what? He's held my secrets. I've told him intel, and he never once went on his podcast and blurted it out there because he had inside information. But Tucker Carlson absolutely did. That's why Donald Trump likes Mark Levin. Now, another part. Susie Wiles, breast cancer. He's saying she's going to be in the White House for the next few months. What did I say last week? I said Susie Wiles will be leaving around September timeframe. And now you're hearing Susie Wild's got breast cancer. And by the way, she most likely doesn't have breast cancers, and she'll be leaving the White House relatively soon. They were just finding an easy exit plan for her so that she didn't have to say, I resign or you're fired.
Exit strategy.
Yep.
And
Exit strategy.
here's the significance around Susie Wild's exit. And we talked about this. I think it was DEFCON. It might have been Overwatch and the Guardian. The significance of when Susie leaves is the marker for major operations to start unfolding, because at that point, the gatekeeping and certain people that are going to be put into certain positions is all going to come into fluid. So it is my opinion that Susie's exit is a marker that they just completed operational security to its fullness, that there's no more loose ends. And that's why
I like that thought.
And that's why you see a lot of these leak operations coming out right now. I do want to cover something real quick before we get into the Rumble rants. And it kind of goes, I shared this on my show earlier, but I want to share it with this audience because it's important. Josh, do you like Hillary Clinton?
No.
Yeah, neither do I. Neither do I.
What did I say to you about all this? What did I say to you about all this?
Hold it. Let me play. I want to play this 37-second clip. He's smiling because Josh knows where I'm going with this right now.
Well, Alpha knows that we were in a disagreement, but now he's starting to believe what I'm telling him.
Take a listen to this. This is not AI, folks. This is real.
I think all of that is a very good signal that there is beginning to be a better understanding, both by the president and the people around him, as well as by the leaders of our European allies, that there can be common ground amongst us. And the kind of dismissiveness that we saw in the first Trump administration has been replaced by a much more obvious working relationship to the good of European security, transatlantic security, and hopefully Ukrainian security. So I'm actually encouraged.
Did we just hear Hillary Clinton sign off on Trump's presidency moves, specifically with what's going on with these combat operations and everything? Here's why it's important in my perspective, and then I'll turn it over to you, Josh, so you can be like, I fucking told you guys. Is the reason I asked Josh, do you like Hillary Clinton? Because I know he doesn't. I don't. Chances are 100% of you guys don't like her. If you do, you're probably a weirdo, right? But our environment, our community, we are the minority. And what have we been talking about? Trump's going to be making some very significant, quote unquote, controversial moves in the very immediate future. And he needs to make sure that that court of public opinion is aligned with where he needs. Hillary Clinton her audience is never going to watch this podcast.
Nope.
Her audience is never going to follow our Substacks, our social media, anything like that. But the millions and millions of people who adore her, because we know they're weirdos and freaks, that still listen to her, just heard her sign off on Orange Man not bad anymore.
Listen to this.
Hit play.
I just want to ask you about something very interesting that you said twice today. That you talked to another former president about the Iran strikes.
I did.
Was it George W. Bush?
No,
Was it Bill Clinton?
I don't want to say. I don't want to say because
Barack Obama?
a member of a party, they have Trump derangement syndrome. Well, but it's somebody that happens to like me, and I like that person who's a smart person. But that person said, I wish I did it. Okay, but I don't want to get into who.
Okay. Doesn't want to get into who.
So, well, let me land the point. I'll give it to you here is because I know what you're going to say right now, but I want people to understand this. You're going to see moves that are more important than my opinion and your opinion of Hillary Clinton. You're going to see moves that have weighed what has the greatest impact on America. Right now, we're not in that unity phase yet because there's so much infiltration. We can't promote. We can't promote unity while we still have the enemy within our ranks. That's a recipe for disaster. So what Trump's doing right now, and us, what we're all doing is we're exposing the infiltrators, the fakes, the pretenders, because at the conclusion of them all being exposed, then you absolutely do need you need unity at that point, and we'll move into that phase. What Trump is doing now, which tells me we're very close to this evolution of what the precipice is about to look like, is he's getting that audience that hates us and hates him. He's getting their puppet masters to say, Orange Man not bad.
Yep.
Orange Man
So-
doing good. And with that, I'll give it to you, Josh.
I want to address this real quick. So, Metal Magic Restoration 3823 said, "Love Josh, but he's so in left field on Tucker and even Candace. First time I can say that since I followed him way back before the bands." I appreciate the feedback. Well, listen, I don't hate Tucker. I listen to Tucker occasionally. I agree with a lot of points that Tucker makes, but I disagree with Tucker on that Israel is controlling Trump. Period. That's it. I just disagree with him on that. I don't think that that's like me against Tucker or anything like that. Yeah, Joe Kent leaked information to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson went out there and spouted it on his podcast. That's not right.
Here's what I'll add to that. And I don't care
Candace, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm going to speak to Tucker. Tucker Carlson's a piece of shit, and I used to love Tucker Carlson. Why do I think he's a piece of shit? Well, when he goes on his platform and he says that if Iran surrenders, our military is going to rape their women and children, he's lost all respect for me.
I didn't hear that.
I have the video. I can play it if people want to say it. And as a matter of fact, the Secretary of War came out and commented to it and said our young men and women are out there, doing the Lord's work protecting this country. So what I'll tell you is whether Tucker Carlson's playing a role or not, my honest reaction, because our reactions are what are important, because they don't want us to pretend, they don't want us to guess what our reactions are to be. They don't want us to think, well, if Trump's doing this and Tucker's really a double agent, he's this, well, then I should respond like this. No, they want honest reactions because they've already factored that into the model of the operation they're doing. But just understand whether he's playing a role or not, what he said about our military is absolutely horrific, and that is unforgivable.
Now, my comments on Candace, I don't listen to Candace. I did a lot during the Charlie Kirk stuff. And one of the things that I noticed about her is that she doesn't understand the meaning of correlation does not equate causation. And that a lot of the things when you begin to research what she's saying fall into that category. Number two is the network underneath her of the propagators of her information are known influence ops and agitators. Like in our circles, these people are known as influence operators working for somebody else. So that's one of the reasons that I just kind of stay neutral on all that. Only recently I've started kind of commenting on it. But no, I'm just, those are my thoughts and my opinions. I disagree with these people on a lot of things, and I have that right. But I appreciate your honesty. Thanks for saying that. Now, going back into Trump talking about the former president, there's only one former Democrat president that Trump has claimed he liked over the past few years. More recently, a week before Bill Clinton's deposition, Trump came out and said, "I love Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton and I have been friends for a long time. And, Bill will go in there and he'll tell the truth." So what does the question that Peter Doocy asked indicate? This is the important part. That President Trump has recently, since the Iran war, been in contact with this foreign president or with this former president, Bill Clinton. Now, what does that mean? My thoughts are that the Clintons have capitulated. Listen, Obama, Clinton, all of these people are middle-level management in the global organization. They're not the top dogs. They're not the lead people that are running the show. They are middle-level management. And their option right now, when Trump won that 2025 election, was to capitulate. That's my theory. I don't like the Clintons. I think they're criminals. I think they should be in jail just like you do. But guess what? I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not the president of the United States. I don't have all of the intelligence and knowledge that he has from that 40,000-foot view to make the discernment and the decisions that he's making. But he does. And if he's coming out and showing us that, hey, Bill Clinton works for me now, Hillary Clinton works for me now, we should respect that. Not them, but his decision.
I'm there with you.
Last part.
Go ahead. Fire it off. Fire.
The intel psyop. Netanyahu with 6 fingers, the floating ring, Uncle B's head elongating and going back. So this all started actually before the Iranian attacks on Israel, which claimed that Netanyahu was actually dead. I think that it was the Mossad that started the rumor that Netanyahu was dead. And let me explain this for people. Iran has confirmed multiple times that Mojtaba Khomeini is alive, right? Since then, we've heard the U.S. and Israel come out in almost a mocking and degrading narrative. You had Pete Hegseth the other day coming out saying he's gay, and I heard he's disfigured and his leg was amputated. Right? Now they're saying he's gay, that he's in a coma, that he went and paid for sterilization therapy. Guys, this is degrading and mocking of their leader. Now, why are they doing that? Because they know he's dead. So what does Iran do? They bring a cardboard cutout of him. They give a handwritten letter. That's indicative that he's dead. So think about the Mossad, okay? Switch it up for a second. The rumor begins that Benjamin Netanyahu is dead in the Iranian attack. Netanyahu delays 3 days and then releases a proof of life video. But the video shows anomalies. It shows him having 6 fingers, much younger haircut. His pocket magically moves and covers his hand. The next day, another video, more anomalies. The ring appears and then disappears. At the same time, Iran has pushed AI-generated battle footage, claiming major victories over the U.S. and Israel. These clips spread online and even bleed into the mainstream reporting. This is what Donald Trump just called out the Washington Post and the New York Times for the other day, saying that this is treason. It escalates to the point where warnings are issued about AI propaganda. Platforms begin taking action on misleading content. So what's really happening? One side's insisting their leader is alive, uses controlled messaging and limited visibility. The other side appears publicly, allows anomalies to circulate, responds with calm, almost comedic confidence. This is where the pattern emerges. Israeli wartime communications often use dark humor, public mockery, and subtle signaling, not always to explain, but to demonstrate control over the information domain. The message, you decide, but it starts to look like Iran is trying to manipulate perception to dictate control over the narrative. Israel is playing the narrative itself while maintaining absolute psychological domain control. If this is the case, then this isn't just propaganda. It's a psychological warfare with a sense of humor. And I said, good job, Mossad. Well played, because that's exactly what this is they are mocking, they are degrading Iran because they know that Mojtaba is dead. And not only that, is they know that Iran is like their game of controlling the narrative is weak. And Israel is mocking them by showing them, look, we can throw out a real video of Netanyahu with 6 fingers and he's still alive and people are going to think he's dead. But guess what? We control the narrative. We control how this information game goes. And that is a Mossad psyop for anybody out there who's not paying attention. Is Netanyahu dead? No. If Netanyahu was dead, people, nukes would be falling on Iran right now. Now, this is really interesting. Did you hear that today, Israel airstrikes killed the head of the Iranian Supreme National Security Council?
No, I didn't hear that.
Ali Larijani was killed today. All right? This guy. I'll pull this post up real quick. Now, this is really interesting, Alpha. And this will maybe fall into one of our OG shows that we're going to do. Iran state-run news has confirmed the death of Ali Larijani, the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. Now, he's been very vocal on his X profile about a lot of things. Here's a post that he posted 2 days ago. Why don't you read that for everybody out there, Alpha? Can you read that?
I can't unless you zoom in
Okay.
a lot.
Let me save this real quick and then go to this because I think that this is, I want you to read this post because I want you to get the shock in your mind when you realize that Israel just killed this guy today. Okay. Israel just killed this guy today. Listen, read what he wrote.
All right. This comes from Ali. I've heard that the remaining members of Epstein's network have devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to 9/11 and blame Iran for it. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people.
And Israel bombed him today. What did he just say?
He just said who was behind 9/11. That's what he just said. And that
Said
they're going to do another one.
That Israel was Epstein's handler. They devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to 9/11, that they were behind 9/11, and that they're planning a false flag to blame on Iran. Or, yeah. Now, by the way, this is interesting. I mean, so nobody saw this post. I guess I was the only one because nobody in the conspiracy world or any world is putting that out there but me. But that is legit on his X profile from 2 days ago. You can go check it out. And 2 days after he posts that, he's dead. And what did Israel post? Hey, if you don't want your leaders to be killed, then maybe you shouldn't be walking around in the streets in big crowds with Mossad agents surrounding you. Dude, they are trolling these guys so hard.
So I have the Hegseth response on that video, because this is part of my show for tomorrow. So I will play this part for you guys, and then you guys can tune into my show tomorrow if you want to see the Tucker Carlson part. So let me bring this up and share it with you guys. And you can see Hegseth is going to get questioned on Tucker Carlson's statement. So let me bring it up. And then just give me a thumbs up, Josh. So I know you guys are getting the audio through this.
In parts of the party, particularly from your fellow Fox News alum, Tucker Carlson, he called the war disgusting and evil, and then said of unconditional surrender, which the president has called for, means foreign troops get to rape your wives and daughters. Have you heard these comments, and what's your reaction to them?
We're busy executing on behalf of great patriotic Americans with a clear mission that's 47 years overdue. And we're going to execute on that regardless of what people say about it.
I didn't hear it. Yeah, so I didn't know Tucker said that. That's crazy.
It was crossing the line. So like I said, whether you think he's playing a role or not, that's the red line for me when it comes to our military. Yeah.
So Tudor 1972 said, amazing how Israel is the pride capital of the world, and they protect pedos and Christian people support that. Number one is we've been very outspoken on this podcast about how Israel actually treats Christians. They treat them very, very poorly. Iran actually is 60% Christian and treats Christians way better than Israel ever will. Alpha and myself do not support Benjamin Netanyahu. We don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. We both declare that he's a war criminal. We don't support the Knesset or the Israeli government. And if you go back to the Nazi time frame, the majority of the Nazi biological doctors that came out there with transvestites and transhumanism were all Zionists or Jewish doctors that perpetuated that type of agenda. I don't disagree with you. But what I'm trying to say is that Donald Trump controls Israel. He controls Benjamin Netanyahu. And I think that that's one important fact that we have to accept and understand. That
Absolutely.
Donald Trump is definitely in control. And he's saying, hey, I got this. Let me handle this.
And I completely sign off on that. And for the retards that want to say, you guys are pro-Israel, go look at our content.
Yeah.
Go look at our content and you tell me, because I had so much content that got me banned and in trouble.
Dude, there's an article out there in Georgia, and like the Georgia state or the Georgia, one of the big Georgia state freaking newspapers about how I'm an anti-Semite.
Dude, Rachel Maddow.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow. You guys, I call her Rachel Madcow. Rachel Madcow played a segment of my show where me and Patriot Street Fighter Scott McKay were talking about the Khazarians. And she's like, these Nazis on the Alpha Warrior show. Now, it was awesome because I was still fairly small back then. And I got like 4,000 subscribers in like one day. So
I support that guy.
So I was like, now maybe who knows what some of those audience members you kind of have politically. But again, if you think that that's our position, then I think that's a low IQ take when you go and actually study our content. Again, this goes back to a statement I said a little while ago. What you're going to get from me and Josh is we address all the threats, all of them. And a lot of people don't like that because, like I said, they have an agenda. So with that, I will bring on the Rumble rants. No super chats on YouTube, and no.
By the way, I think we still have over 10,000 people watching us live on Rumble. We're still on the big screen, which is awesome, and we're sitting at 10,200 people.
Damn,
awesome, guys! Make sure you're giving that thumbs up. Make sure you're giving those likes and those shares and those comments. And follow Badlands Media if you're new here and you like this content.
That is badass. Yeah, please do us a solid. And me and Josh will tell you after the Rumble rants. We'll let you guys know where you can find our and follow and support our independent channels. But let me bring these up on the screen because you guys supported us all night tonight, and we appreciate it. $100 coming in from Breadmaker62. Praying you are both well. Alpha, get some Tiger Balm, extra strength for your back. Much love and many prayers for you both. Semper Fortis. So you know about my sciatic. So on the last show, I finished it about 25 minutes early because I was like, look, you guys have had me here for about 3 hours and I'm going to go another 2 with Josh. I need to get up and walk around. So I actually went and got on my inversion table for a little bit and walked around. I was just like, all right, I'm ready for another 90 minutes to 2 hours. And very, very, very awesome show. And I do appreciate that Josh was running with a lot of information because I won't show it, but I'm stiff and things hurt right now. I'm old, folks. I'm old. But again, thank you for that, Breadmaker. $20 coming in from Graham RGB. Thank you for helping me understand what is going on. You're welcome, Graham. Another $100. Damn.
Hope continues. Appreciate you guys.
Looking forward to another great show. You guys are always spot on. Speaking of spot on, you remember, Josh, on Overwatch and The Guardian, I had been telling people, look to South America. We saw what's going on with Ecuador, but I've been telling people, look at Chile, look at Argentina, not for combat stuff, but look at things that are going to show there's collaboration with Trump and this administration. And I'll be talking about this more at length tomorrow. But go look at what the Argentina president is doing with his border and who he thinks for that. Again, you guys want to know what's happening, what's going on? Follow myself and Josh.
Well, didn't Millie do something really important today? What did he do? Oh, man, now you're going to make me search it.
Go search it out. Again, DEFCON, the Tuesday favorite.
They left the World Health Organization.
Nice. Screw the WHO, baby. That's what I'm talking about. And more will follow. Follow DEFCON, you guys. That's the show you're watching tonight. DEFCON ZERQ, Tuesday nights at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Sundays here on Badlands as well, you can follow us at Q After Hours. And this is news. We forgot to mention it this past Sunday. So, folks, mark your calendars. Q After Hours is not going to be starting at midnight Eastern anymore. It will be starting at 11 p.m. Eastern. So just make sure if you show up at midnight, you're going to miss an hour of the show. So starting this Sunday, Q After Hours, 11 p.m. Eastern. So an hour earlier, you guys can do the Marine Corps math to see what your time zones look like. So,
again, by the way, the statehood comment that Trump made was because Venezuela defeated the United States 3-2 in the World Baseball Classic final. He said, statehood, you got it.
You know what else was pretty nice? I think this was, as a matter of fact, it might have even been on 03/11 day, March 11th. Sometime in the last week, the United States Marines raised the American flag in the embassy in Venezuela.
Oh,
yeah, pretty damn nice. $10 from Boycott YouTube. Thank you. Well, thank you, Boycott. $5 from Symbol 10. McKinley, the tariff guy, was president before Roosevelt.
McKinley, thank you.
Conspiracy theory is Roosevelt was responsible for his assassination.
Yeah, so Symbol, you're right. It was McKinley, not Garfield. Thank you. Garfield was actually before, I think, McKinley. And McKinley was shot in Buffalo, New York. And I believe it was John Jacob Astor that actually was responsible for killing McKinley and getting Teddy Roosevelt in the office.
The Astor family. That goes to a photo we talked about a few weeks ago. Yep. $2 from Larry 5673. Saudi pipeline to the Red Sea preparedness. Yeah. What was that, 45 years ago?
Yep, they've already got it already. No, you don't need the Straits of Hormuz when you got a pipeline.
$10 from Jay McLean. I look forward to your show every week. I love all the information Josh is sharing. I learned something new every show. Love you guys.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, that Jay. Look, another one. Wow.
Boom diggity.
Oh man, listen, we're gonna have fancy lunches this week. $100 from the Boom Diggity. My theory is Trump wants Iranian uranium so he can make plutonium, and we can all time travel back to the future and get to the golden age.
Oh.
Boom
You know,
Diggity.
it's funny to mention that because, you know, in the movie Back to the Future, when Marty was going to the shopping center, who was he doing the uranium deal with?
Ooh,
Do you remember?
I
The
don't.
Iranians.
Holy shit.
When Doc Brown comes up,
You're
Doc
right,
Brown was
yeah.
doing the
No,
uranium deal with the Iranians, and they were the ones that killed him, but he was wearing
Yes.
the flapjack.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
It's the
they fire
Iranians.
the RPG at the car and all that
Yeah.
stuff when they're doing the 88. That's right, dude. Dude, we need to do a Back to the Future on Overwatch and the Guardian.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, that would be so much freaking fun. No way. Dude, another 100 back to
Oh, you
back.
guys are awesome.
CL Settle, Alpha, and Josh. You have the best followers. This has been a blast. Josh got me so hyped, I had to go get a glass of wine. He blew out his internet, CL Settle. He blew out his internet. I hope you're enjoying that wine. Dollar for dollar from ZBM. We still need our land back from the CCP. I'm thinking since they've been behind COVID and mass voter fraud and their claim to US is null and void, right? And we only need 3% of patriots to wake up. I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to be considered null and void, similar to the concept behind the auto pin when it comes to things like that. We'll see. We also might see Xi, when he has full control over China, make his own law that says Chinese citizens can't buy foreign land in the United States or something like that. So you'll see. There's a lot of ghost towns, and a lot of the population numbers have been inflated in China as well. So
China needs genetic diversification just like Japan does. Their population has actually been declining over the last few years. I just put a post out about this. So, it was the Libyans. Sorry, it was the Libyans. It's the same thing. Someone said it's not the Iranians, it was the Libyans. Thank you, Roxy. But yeah, it's yeah, now you got me thinking about something else.
$2 from Hold No VR Soul _ USA1. A lot of evil ass POS criminals better be held accountable and be hung or go to prison for a long time. Thanks, guys, for all you do. You are greatly appreciated. Hashtag where we go one, we go all. Hashtag AO. I like where you're going. Thank you for that. $10 from Tal22. Susie has been criticized for gatekeeping, but did she leak key information? Anything specific? Again, her gatekeeping might have been her role.
Yeah. Well, I think it wasn't necessarily that she leaked information. I think that she was withholding information from President Trump,
Which has got a lot of people frustrated.
Yep.
I think we're going to see, once she leaves and the new guy is appointed, or gal.
That's a guy.
It is. I think we're going to see a lineup change that's going to make people say, oh, shit.
Trump admin V 2.0.
$20 coming in
April showers.
From AOB22. Alpha and Josh, thanks for everything you do. And whoever says you're not the best are the 4 to 6% that are lost forever.
Oh,
Definitely agree with you on that one. And that will conclude our Rumble rants. Let me refresh the Badlands boost page to make sure we don't miss out on anybody going over there. And we are solid. So, Josh, while I fix my screen, let everybody know where they can follow you and find you, and then I'll do the same afterwards.
yeah, guys, I just put out links for Alpha and myself in the chat, so that goes out to YouTube and Rumble. So if you guys want to check us out over there, my links, redpills.tv, redpills.tv. And I'm all linked up in there, social media, the Rumble to YouTube. You can find all of our channels. So redpills.tv to find me. And
There
on
you go.
X at Real Joshua Reid, last name spelled R-E-I-D. At Real Joshua Reid, last name spelled R-E-I-D. Substack, you can find that link on redpills.tv.
Boom. Today we ran the show earlier since I wasn't able to do the show last night. So we actually ran it at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 my time. And holy smokes, Josh, I'll talk to you about this when we debrief. I had an audience that just made me go, what? Again, we didn't get to finish the show. So part 2 will be tomorrow, and it'll be at the same time tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Again, Colonel Towner's on vacation, so no Gladio tomorrow night. Gladio will continue next week. That's Operation Gladio, if you're new to the show tonight, that I referenced earlier. So again, tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, a conversation with Just Alpha part 2. And again, you guys can find everything at thealphawarrior.tv. And again, thank you guys for supporting us. Huge audience. Again, you guys kept it over 10,000 the entire night. So do us a solid, smash the thumb, hit the heart, and definitely please leave a comment. Any final words from you, Josh? I had a lot of people reach out and ask if I could play the song again. So I want to play my untitled song
Awesome.
for our closeout.
Bring it up. And final words, much love, respect, God bless, take care, have a great night. See you next time.
Catch you guys on the next one. God bless. Semper Fi.
I see that flag in the sunrise, flying high above the land. I think about the soldiers who never made it back again. Boots in foreign deserts, crosses in the rain. Freedom ain't a gift, son, it's written in their names. Hear the echo of their footsteps, hear the prayers of mothers prayed. Every star upon that banner is a price that someone paid. We built this country on faith and sacrifice, on the blood of the brave who laid down their lives. From the soldiers on the front lines to the towns back home, from the veterans standing to the truth online. Digital soldiers holding the line. We built this country on faith, patriotism and sacrifice. We built this country on MAGA. From the farmers and the truckers to the ones who wear the badge, from the miners and the teachers to the boys who raise that flag. Every freedom that we're breathing came from someone standing tall. When America was threatened, they were ready for the call. Hear the thunder of the people, hear the freedom in their cry. We won't bow to the darkness while old glory still flies. We built this country on faith and sacrifice, on the blood of the brave who laid down their lives. From the soldiers on the front lines to the towns back home, from the veterans standing to the truth online. Digital soldiers holding the line. We built this country on faith, patriotism and sacrifice. We built this country on MAGA. Fold that flag with honor, lay those heroes down to rest. But remember what they fought for, freedom ain't finished yet. We built this country on faith and sacrifice, on the tears of the families and the brave who paid the price. If the day ever comes when freedom's on the line, every patriot standing side by side, every voice rising for the red, white, and blue. We built this country on faith, patriotism and sacrifice. We built this country on MAGA. Oh, God bless the fallen, God bless the brave, God bless America, the land that they say. God bless America, the land that they say.